Hello everyone, so today I'm going to be doing not a reading vlog because I haven't filmed different clips, but I am going to be talking about some new volumes that have come out in the last month or two. Right away though, sorry if the audio quality isn't as good as usual. I got a new phone, but I forgot my microphone doesn't work with it, so I have to get a thing to make it work, but it's fine. Anyway, in this video, I have 7 new volumes to talk about. Most of them were pretty good. One of them was really bad, and you probably already know which one was really bad if you watched my last video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the Summer Hikaru Died Volume 4. This volume was the creepiest by far so far, and of course that means it was my favorite volume. I was getting a little nervous at the beginning of this volume because I was struggling to remember a couple of the characters they were referring to or the situations, and it is a problem when I read series like this as the volumes come out. That becomes an issue for me, but as we got more and more into the volume, I enjoyed it much more. I was once again, of course, immersed into the story, especially with the creepy atmosphere that continues to go throughout this entire series. Our main characters are, of course, continuing to try to learn more about the thing that has replaced Hikaru, and it seems like some villagers may know more than we originally thought. I'm not going to say anything else about the specifics of this volume besides the fact that there were several moments in this volume that were genuinely creepy. A couple gave me physical chills, so I loved that. I heard that apparently this manga is ending relatively soon in Japan. Apparently it's in its last arc or something, and I can totally understand that. This series doesn't need to be a long-running series. If it continued to be as creepy as it is, of course I would enjoy it either way, but the mystery, it seems like we're moving closer towards a conclusion for that, so that's perfectly fine with me. And one thing I always say, but I want to point out again, is I really appreciate the very subtle exploration of grief in here, made even more complicated by the fact that Hikaru is still walking around interacting with people, or at least they seem to think he is. So how do you grieve when the thing that you're grieving is still there? I continue to think that's a really interesting question that this manga is exploring. And yeah, definitely one of my favorite series that's being released right now. Next, another one with a similar color scheme. This is the only volume in this video that I did not like. So this is Snowball Earth Volume 2. The first volume was okay. I didn't really enjoy it, but I thought I'll give it another chance just in case it gets better. It didn't, it got worse. This manga to me seems like it's trying to do everything it can to not be canceled. There's no consideration of pacing or character development. It's just big monster after big monster thrown at you. At one point there's a new character introduced, and in the same chapter, in like 20 pages, we get her introduction, which in not a great way. I don't like her introduction, but we get her introduction and then some big emotional moment that we're supposed to care about, but we were just introduced to this character 10, 20 pages earlier, so it doesn't hit at all, even with her traumatic backstory that's thrown in the middle there. So I don't know, it just feels very poorly paced. There is no time to breathe. It's just action, action, action without learning anything about the characters or anything. Also, there's an attempt at comedy in these volumes, and it's not good. It's not funny. I sometimes forget that they're even trying to make a joke, and I'm wondering what they're talking about. I do think if this manga was better paced, much better paced, like at this point in Volume 2, we're getting into things that I feel like would have been interesting if you had stretched it out to even 5 volumes, but when all this stuff is jammed into only 2 volumes, it's just not very enjoyable. So this series might get better in the future. I have no idea. I cannot justify spending any more time or money on it though. Next, I read Steel of the Celestial Shadows Volume 3, and to be fully honest, I was 100% prepared to drop this series after this volume before I read it. While I thought the first 2 volumes were okay, I was not completely hooked. I know that lots of people really are enjoying the series, and I thought it was just fine, but I couldn't really justify, again, spending any more money on a series that I thought was just okay. So this was the series' last chance for now, and I'm very happy to report that this volume was much better than the first 2, at least for me, in my opinion, because this one gets a lot darker and quite a bit gross. There's a character that can control bugs, and it's like the entire volume is just bugs. So if you have a phobia of bugs, that might be an issue. But the only time that I had a problem was when there was this spider that was drawn so realistically, I almost couldn't even look at the panel. But if it can give me that kind of response, I feel like it's doing something pretty good. Anyway, so there's that in the entire volume. It was really gross. And then there are some darker themes. I really think it's interesting the development that's going on with our main character in this volume. I'd like to see more of that because I feel like that was just a tiny bit lacking in the first 2 volumes. Obviously, you can't do a lot of development with your main character in the first 2 volumes of a series, but I am looking forward to the direction that this is taking him. Of course, I'm not entirely in love with the series at this point. Just because there was 1 good volume doesn't mean I'm gonna go and say everyone should pick this up. I never say that about anything anyway. But if it continues in this direction and tone, I will be happy to continue reading it. Next, I read My Girlfriend's Child Volume 5, very different from everything else so far. So this volume was pretty interesting. Our main character is finally learning that, hey, it's okay to ask for help, especially in the situation that she's in. So while we get closer to a resolution for some of the issues that she has, other ones are starting to pop up. In this volume, we see that there will definitely be some conflicts with her peers at school. They've started gossiping about her, and she has to wonder if this is a safe environment for her to continue her education, especially in her condition, or if that's just too much pressure and she needs to go to a different school that can better handle her needs. So this continues to be a pretty unique manga just in terms of subject matter. There are not very many manga that are exploring topics like this. Also, I appreciate how it is definitely dramatic, but not in a way that's like incredibly unrealistic for a character or a person like this in this situation. It makes for both an educational read, but also a compelling read. So it's not boring and bogged down. It is readable, and that's really important for a series. I'm pretty sure this targets teenagers. So if you want a teenager to read something like this, you can't make it read like a textbook. You have to make it interesting and dramatic. I've seen the word melodrama thrown out a couple times about this series, mostly on Goodreads. And I guess that's true, but I don't think it's a flaw of the series. I think that makes it more readable and therefore a strength of it. So definitely one I would recommend for sure. Next, I read volume 7 of Welcome Back Alice. This is the final volume. I read this volume in like 5 minutes because it is Shuzo Oshimi. There's very, very little dialogue in this volume, besides the ending author's note, but the rest of the volume took me 5 minutes to read. For me, I think this is such an interesting exploration of gender and identity. And obviously, Shuzo Oshimi does not do a perfect job with these topics, but I don't think he's trying to. It really seems like with each newer series, like this one and Blood on the Tracks especially, he is just exploring his own psyche through his art, and you can totally see that, especially when reading the author's note at the end, as per usual with these newer series. But I thought the ending of this manga was pretty good. It's actually kind of surprisingly happy, but I usually always enjoy the ending of his series. So I do understand, like, if people are fans of his older works, Flowers of Evil, for example, Happiness, even Blood on the Tracks, I can totally see why someone would be disappointed with this series because it's not as high stakes as those ones, I would say. I don't even think it's as dark. Of course, it does go kind of crazy, like all his works do, but I don't think it goes quite as far. So yeah, I totally understand why someone who likes all this stuff wouldn't like this, but I continue to really enjoy all of his works, even if some of them are a little bit more suspenseful than others. Let's say that. So yeah, solid ending to an interesting series for me. The next volume I read was Auto Volume 3. This was another really great volume in the series. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as the first 2, but I still really enjoyed it. We see some more main players be introduced in this story, as well as seeing a little glimpse into where the characters, like the kids with plant powers, where they came from. Because the series is so action-packed and quick to read, I do think I want to wait until at least quite a few more volumes have been released before I read any more. I just don't want to forget all the main powers at play in this story. That way I won't miss any details, because a story like this that's like kind of post-apocalyptic, dealing with human experimentation, I really enjoy those series. So I don't want to miss any details about any of that. Next, I read A Kingdom of Quartz Volume 2, and the first thing I want to say about this series is the art continues to be really, really stunning. I'm not sure how well this is going to come off on camera, but here's one example. Here's another, some really great double page spreads, and each panel is really full without looking like cluttered, which is kind of really impressive for a manga. It can be really easy to get muddled panels, but I didn't feel like any of these ones were like that. I have no idea what the release schedule for this manga is in Japan, but I can totally understand a really slow release date with how nice the art is and how detailed it is. In terms of content, this volume has quite a bit of world building. We see kind of the hierarchy or power structure with the angels, and a little glimpse into the foundation of this world and how it came to be. What I really like about the series, of course, is that underneath everything, but also sometimes at the surface, is this looming darkness. And there's demons, of course, in here, and any glimpse we get at those is really exciting to me. So of course, if it's gonna get dark, I'm gonna enjoy it. My one critique for this manga is I do still feel like the pacing is a little bit too fast. I felt that way with the first volume, and it's not in terms of like the action, there's too much action and it's just going too fast in that way. I just mean the plot beats, they don't leave a lot of time to explore them. We move very quickly from one thing to the next, and again, this could be because I read too fast, but I do think this one is just going a little bit too quickly. Not as bad as some of the series that I've read, but it is a thing worth noting. This is another one that I'm going to probably wait for more volumes to come out before I read any more because I am enjoying it, and I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm going to continue enjoying it. And since the releases are so slow, there's no point in me reading one volume every 6 months and forgetting everything that I read last time. So yeah, definitely another unique manga in this collection that I read. All right, that was everything I wanted to talk about in this video. If you've read any of these volumes, please let me know your thoughts on them down below, or let me know what you've been reading recently. That's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.